How did the Diary of a CEO quickly go from nothing to the 10th biggest podcast in the world? On the surface, it's just some British guy and some clickbaity thumbnails. But if you dig a little deeper, there's much more going on than anybody thinks about. So today we're breaking down 6 unique principles that the Diary of a CEO used to blow up, become someone that others want to follow, and build a brand worth millions of dollars. If you're new here, this is where we break down how people blow up, why they're rewarded with followers and money and respect. You see, the old way was gaming the algorithm. It was hacks and tricks and hijacking the limbic system. But the new way is becoming someone that others want to follow. That's what we talk about here. And there's principles to this. I don't have a PhD, but I study these people nonstop. I've acquired hundreds of thousands of followers on other accounts, and I'll break it down for you in an interesting way. Let's jump into it. To start, we'll talk about what the Diary of a CEO has in common with cults. You see, because if you listen to Steven Bartlett, who is the host of Diary of a CEO, you'll notice he has a few certain phrases you'll hear over and over again, like this.
And this is the Diary of a CEO. I hope nobody's listening, but if you are, then please keep this to yourself.
Or at the very end, he'll ask every guest a question that the previous guest left for them in the diary. Now this is genius. One, because it gives people a reason to stick around, so it increases retention. People watch to the end to see what special question is going to get asked. It's kind of the same way that people would go to multiple nights of the same Taylor Swift concert just to see what the special songs were that she was going to be playing that night. It also ties the guests to each other, because if you're a guest, you probably want to see who is answering your question and what they said about it. Plus, as a listener, if you like a guest, you want to see who responded to their question, so it ties you to the next episode. And all of these little things, even if they're meaningless, which they're not, but even if they are, they contribute as icons to build a strong brand. They're consistent items that listeners become familiar with, and they differentiate you from everyone else, even if they're meaningless. This is the same thing that religions and cults do. Think of all of the different actions, the rituals, the sayings that would go on in a religious meeting, like if you go to church or even in a cult. There's a great book called Primal Branding that I'd highly recommend reading if you're interested in learning more about this. And the easiest way to tell if you're doing well at this is if people mock you, do they mock you based on those key consistent elements, those key icons that you have?
I am Mike Tyson, a fighting legend and arguably the baddest man on the planet. Thank you so much for coming on today. Hey, thank you so much for having me in the podcast. I've always wanted to ask you, when you were opposite your opponent, was it just about winning the fight even by points, or was it always about getting that knockout? No, I wanted to kill him. You mean like kill his capacity to hate so that he only had the capacity to love? No, I mean I literally wanted to kill him. Take it so.
So lesson 1, create key icons of your brand that people know you for. Next, I'm gonna tell you a story. There was a company called eMode, and they sold online personality tests and quizzes. They were doing okay, they had a solid product, but they couldn't attract that many customers, and they were considering selling, but they couldn't get a good offer. One day, the CEO sat down, did a very long brainstorming session, and he decided to rename the company to Tickle. Half the engineering team threatened to quit. They said, we are not going to work for a company called Tickle. That's so stupid, that's immature, it's childish, it doesn't make any sense. But he managed to settle them down, and over the next 4 months, tons of journalists started writing about them. Investors wanted in, and they ended up getting an acquisition offer that was 2.5 times higher than anything they had before. And it was because the name grabbed attention. It was provocative, it was memorable. And the CEO of this company wrote a blog post that I'd highly recommend. It's called Your Company Name Matters a Lot. The point is, in a saturated market, you need some way to stand out. And that's what Steven Bartlett did perfectly with the Diary of a CEO. It's memorable, it's unique, it has an air of exclusivity, and it lends itself to cool branding and expansion items like the diary that he has people sign or the game that he's launched. It's the same reason I think Mr. Beast is more popular than if his channel name was Jimmy Donaldson, which is his real name. I think this is especially important on YouTube, actually less so on podcasts. You see a lot of success in the podcasting world with just like, the name show, the name experience. But if you can do it right, and he did it right, then it helps you tremendously. And as the last point here, his other holding companies are named Social Chain and Flight Story. Most people would call their holding company like Robert Kiyosaki LLC or something like that, but he deliberately chooses to create a memorable name. Before the age of 5, there's a mistake that most humans make, and we outgrow it in our personal lives, but on social media we often forget about this. You see, a 4-year-old thinks because he likes goldfish that everyone around him also likes goldfish. It's called the false consensus effect, and we know it's not true. We know people age out of it. But online, many people make the mistake of thinking that because you know or like someone, that other people must too. But Stephen doesn't make this mistake. You see, just because you like Andrew Huberman or Jeffrey Hinton or Esther Perel doesn't mean other people do. Most people don't care about a person, they care about what that person can give them. And so if instead you say Stanford neuroscientist, or godfather of AI, or top sex expert, more people can resonate and pick up those concepts than they can a name. And that's why you'll see Stephen, whenever possible, will replace a guest's name with a descriptor of them that would draw in the largest number of people. I've heard this term called idea surface area. So when possible, maximize your idea surface area, meaning make it applicable to as many people as possible. Sometimes you need a frame break to reset your expectations of how much you could be doing, like this.
My billionaire buddy, he was talking about building his personal brand. He was like, "Can you help me with my social media?" And I said, "Sure, like how many times a week are you posting?" He's like, "Well, I post every day." And I was like, "We put out 350 pieces a week." And he just looked at me and he was like, "Thank you for resetting my minimum standard." Like it was just orders of magnitude. He was posting 7 a week. I was posting 50 times more than him. So yeah, of course we're growing more.
And if you've ever done anything in the world of marketing, you're probably familiar with the idea of A/B testing. You might even know that YouTube now lets you A/B test up to 3 different thumbnails, and you can use other tools to A/B test titles. But few people take A/B testing as seriously as Stephen Bartlett and the Diary of a CEO team. I'll show you what I mean. This is just one screenshot of his A/B testing setup. He doesn't just use YouTube's 3 allotments. He tests across Facebook with dozens of different thumbnails and titles and then chooses the one that performs best. This has the added bonus of getting a bunch of pre-saves for his episodes too. But you can see by this he is extremely data-driven, way more than just about anybody else. The only other person I've seen that comes close to this is Mr. Beast.
So, our game is, we think sweating the small stuff over time, and if you have patience, is a much easier strategy than trying to find some profound way to win.
So the key takeaway here is break your frame around how much you should be testing and experimenting. The basic playbook for podcasts over the past few years has been this. Record the podcast with video, upload the audio part to Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all the big podcast players, then upload the long-form video podcast to YouTube, then clip it up into shorter clips and like shorts, reels, TikToks, and post those. And that's great, that works for a lot of people. But Diary of a CEO went after channels that nobody else was pursuing because they weren't the ones that seemed sexy and they weren't the ones that everyone else was doing. To be clear, he still did all the other ones too, like that's important, that's table stakes, but he went further than anybody else. For example, he went heavily into Facebook, and a while back I heard Brendan Burchard, who's kind of a similar creator, like similar-ish, say that Facebook was actually his top performing channel by revenue for his video content, like even more than YouTube. Diary of a CEO also went after LinkedIn, and after seeing how well they were doing there, he recently said he's going all in on LinkedIn.
And I think for really any founder out there, I think it is your most important platform. But I also see it as being the most effective as it relates to building a business in all regards, from a comms perspective, from a hiring perspective, from an internal and external personal branding perspective for your company as an executive. And I have, for many, many years, told people that I thought the opportunity of LinkedIn would at some point pass, because that's typically what I've seen from other platforms. They kind of lost their way, they've got into too many things, but it just hasn't been the case with LinkedIn, and that's been the most surprising thing of all for me.
Then he also signed an in-flight content partnership so that his podcast is now available on a bunch of flights. Who else is doing that? So the question here is, what are the channels that no one else is looking at? Say for dating, maybe you go and do activities that all the other guys have forgot about if you're a guy, or that all the other girls have forgot about if you're a girl. In business, where is nobody else looking? Anecdotally, I've heard a lot of people say that old regular TV ads, like they're technically called linear TV ads, are crushing it right now because basically everybody forgot about them and CPMs are so much lower. So lesson 5 is pursue channels that are unsexy, that no one else is talking about. I'm gonna throw up a graph that I spent a lot of time making. Now, this isn't a political thing, let's not do that, but I'm gonna use Trump as an example because he promises a lot. He literally says this in his book, The Art of the Deal, and it works out quite well for him. I mean, he's made billions of dollars and been elected president twice. And to use him as an example, a lot of people now feel like he hasn't delivered. P.T. Barnum, who's one of the biggest circus promoters of all time, said a very similar thing. He said, people love a spectacle. You have to sell a spectacle to get people in the door. And getting people in the door is the hard part. That's always the first step. But the smartest people are thinking about, how do I keep people coming back? And to do that, you have to deliver on what you promise. Now, where I'm going with all of this is Diary of a CEO probably uses the most clickbait headlines and thumbnails of any of the major podcasts. Definitely more than Joe Rogan, Lex Fridman, Theo Vaughn, Tim Ferriss, Modern Wisdom, any of those guys. But yet, still for the most part, he delivers on the clickbait. You always see the thing that he's promising, which means people stick around and they love his content. So sell a spectacle and then deliver on it. As a reminder, those are the 6 lessons. I'll see you next time.